Welcome back everyone, Vector Vitality Fit. What if everything you knew about muscle growth was incomplete? Today, we review how restricting blood flow during brutal eccentric contractions eliminates damage while boosting growth signals. A paradox decoded by calculus. 26% of muscle destruction versus near zero damage. The key? Occlusion mathematics. Now, let's take a look at the damage attenuation equation. D of P is equal to D naught times E to the power of minus K times P. Whoa, let's break this down. D naught. This is equal to about 26.4% damage, not including blood flow restriction, or BFR for short. P. This is your occlusion pressure. This can range from about 140 to 200 torr. K. This is the decay constant. This is BFR's protective factor. Now, the experimental setup, 40 eccentric contractions plus forced plantar flexion in rats. For the BFR groups, these groups range from 140 to 160 to 200 torr cuff pressure. What was the critical finding? Damage plummeted to 0.2% at 200 torr. Notice the exponential decay. At 200 torr, just above systolic pressure, BFR acts like a Laplace transform, converting destructive mechanical stress into metabolic signaling. This is your oxygen dynamics model. I know, it seems daunting. Don't worry, let me break it down for you. Delta PMV02 over delta T. This is your rate of change in microvascular oxygen tension. This is equal to D times your gradient squared of PMV02. What is that? That's your oxygen diffusion, where D is your diffusion coefficient. Now, you subtract this by beta times VO2, your metabolic oxygen consumption sink. What are some key results? Well, when no BFR was used, PMVO2 is equal to about 4.9 plus or minus 0.3 torr. Hypoxic, but viable. Now, BFR 200 torr. For PMVO2, this is equal to about 1.8 plus or minus 0.2 torr. Near anoxic, resulting in an ATP crisis. This oxygen freefall triggers contracture, sustained muscle stiffness from ATP depletion. Paradoxically, this locked state protects fibers by reducing strain on sarcomeres. Less stretch is equal to fewer calcium leaks through stretch-activated channels, or SACs for short. Now, this is your protein synthesis pathway. What is some critical data based on this? Well, S6K1 phosphorylation. What the heck is that? Well, the significance of this is protein synthesis, cellular responses, and other possible cellular functions. What they noticed was there was an increase in eccentric and eccentric plus BFR. What about BFR alone? Well, there was no signal. So contraction is mandatory. BFR doesn't trigger growth alone. It amplifies contraction signals. Think of it as a coherent interference where metabolic stress from hypoxia and mechanical stress constructively resonate. This is your optimal occlusion formula. P occlusion is equal to phi times your P systolic, where phi is approximately 1.618. For example, a systolic blood pressure of 120 millimeters of mercury results in about 194 millimeters of mercury occlusion. The protocol? 40 reps of low load eccentrics. How heavy are these loads? About 30% of your 1 rep max. Now, what do I mean by eccentrics? Well, think of this as the portion of a strength training exercise where the muscle lengthens while under tension. It's essentially the lowering or downward phase of an exercise. For example, let's take a look at this pull-up. I grab the bar, I get my grip, I get set up nicely, I pull myself up. Now I gotta slowly let myself go down in full tension, where the muscle is fully contraction and lengthening. This lengthening part right here is the eccentric part of the muscle. What are 3 revolutionary benefits? 1, 0 delayed onset of muscle soreness. You avoid about a 72-hour muscle destruction. 2, hypertrophy. Equivalent growth to heavy lifting with lighter loads and weights. 3, rehab friendly. It's safe for tendons or aging muscles. So who benefits the most? Older adults. I'm talking 30, 40, even 50 plus. This is not just lifting. It's eigenvalue training. BFR diagonalizes the damage matrix, extracting pure growth signals from minimal load. Now, let's take a look at this table. Comparing eccentrics alone, the muscle damage, 26.4%. However, there was still an S6K1 activation, which is good. Now, what about eccentrics plus BFR? Only a 0.2% muscle damage and still a S6K1 activation. The difference is huge just by applying BFR plus eccentrics. So what about BFR alone? Well, 0% muscle damage and no S6K1 activation. So what's the takeaway? BFR plus eccentrics can lead to substantial growth. BFR transforms destructive eccentric contractions into precise growth signals, a physiological hack validated by differential equations. To end it off with one more quote, the body isn't built by force, it's built by Fourier transforms of stress.